So, do you find yourself diluting yourself? Feeling like you don't want to be too much? Getting hyper focused and critical of yourself? The best way you can understand this and what it's providing you for your expansion is just to really understand somewhere along the road, you didn't get the validation that who you were was good. And so now we're all kind of over the place. And the best way you can really see it is when you're around people that make you feel like you're too much and you catch yourself diluting yourself. This is the way to use that to impact your life to become even more key. Okay, so let's get to it. Are you valuing outer external validation? You value the external to feel good, or are you valuing yourself? That's what this video is really about, but we're using that the way I kind of understood when I started to dilute myself or not, bring my whole self to the world and, just really was closing up my throat chakra, really, which is also very connected to your sacral chakras, which is where you create your self-expression, where your whole self resides and how you can create and express self-expression. And so if you feel like you're too much, there's something in your life where you got some external validation that made you not value yourself. And think about both of those words are the same root. It's about value. And so what we have to try to do, and what this video is for, is the ways that I've learned, and the biggest impact was understanding my strengths. And those were the things that I diluted because I was seen as maybe too much with those strengths. But when I reframed what my child self was impressed with in my unconscious about my strengths versus what my strengths that I was given as a gift are really meant to do, it really clicked for me. So if you find yourself not valuing maybe some of your things that you're trying to change about yourself, or you feel like you have to dilute yourself, or maybe, some of your tendencies are not really well received, then this is the video for you, because we want to learn to value all of ourselves and the gifts we were given instead of trying to change too much of what we've been programmed culturally to believe is not good. Okay, so I want to start by saying the number one thing that really has us all jacked up in the world is duality. Yeah, it really is. It's just a dual. Think of the root word of that. So we went through the root word of value and validation. So what we're going to also look at is duality, a dual. It's within us. It's our unconscious beliefs versus our conscious beliefs are always at war with each other. And then how that displays is our internal self is externally at war. And so what's happening here is that, we have a childlike self that just got some views about ourselves that we decided to crush down or try to change to fit into this culture that we were popped into, and these beliefs and these things. And especially for me, like not to get too much into astrology, but this is kind of leading into my story of how I started to view what I thought was bad and I wanted to change about myself as actual gifts and strengths and what I needed to become successful in this world. And until you get to the rudimentary core of this duality in yourself, you won't be able to see what you've been given, if it goes against the culture, by the way, as a gift in what you have to be successful. And so for me, it was being too much. It was being too, maybe the way it was validated to me in an external way is I was bossy, or I was a know-it-all, or I was, what are some of the other things? Just basically overall too much. Oh, too deep. I didn't have to look at everything so deep. I didn't have to, understand everything at its core. Well, first of all, if you know anything about astrology, back to that, is the first house is us. It's our identity. It's the gifts we were given. It's what we want to establish as us. And I have that first house. I have Pluto, which is about depth And then I have Uranus, which is about being a game changer, about being, very wise and very dominant, first house for me. Why would I have written a blueprint like that? And then it took me forever to realize that these were strengths. So this video is for you so we can start embracing the things that we try to dilute in ourselves or change. Even if it's like being super triggered and irrational at points, maybe that's a strength. Maybe you have some 7th house placements where you don't like injustices. But let's figure out how we can master these things, because the duality is what's causing it to be a shit show. And we need to just understand ourselves more deeper. And I hope my example of what happened for me to shift this and how embracing the things I wanted to change about myself actually became the biggest strength, asset, and game changer to heal my duality. And so that's what this video is about. Okay, so like I was saying, we culturally start to believe things at a very young age. And so our childlike self that doesn't have an expansive worldview, depending on where we were raised or what the culture around us was, or even just the culture within our family was, it can make us believe certain things aren't acceptable, or that we are not playing the role that we should be playing, the cultural belief system. And so for me in this example, and I hope this jogs some things for you, is I was born into an area where education, healthcare, government, very Capricornian type things, just rigid, you got to do it this way, very boxed. And so it was, the men were the game changers, the women were the homemakers, and there's nothing wrong with any of this, but we're using it as concepts to understand. Because if you want that culture, if you've watched me before, I don't care, have it. But this was what happened for me, okay? So I was told, basically that I wasn't good enough because I couldn't get a regular education. I was always very vocal about the injustices and how ridiculous things seemed. Like, that was huge for me. Even from the age of 3, I can remember doing this. Like, that's ridiculous. Why are we doing that? I remember spitting out pills that the doctor's office would give me at 5. I was just like, no. It was just something inherently in my soul that I felt like this wasn't right, okay? But then everything pushed against me. Like, you're way too loud, you're way too vocal, you're way too emotional, you're way too analytical, you're way too stubborn about education, you're way too... So then I started to dilute myself. This is what we all do. Our soul is big and expansive. It doesn't like boxes. Our ego that we are incarnated into, our ego is just that set of beliefs that we were made to believe about ourselves and our environment and the world, starts forming at a very young age. And so I started to dilute myself from the very things, the very gifts that could help me become successful. So if you're doing that, it's really a time to start saying, why am I so triggered? Why can't I move forward in my career? Why can't I find a purpose, a passion in my life? And it's 100% because you're diluting the very area of the gifts you were given that you wrote in your blueprint to use to expand and get in line with your purpose. Okay, so let's go to story time so you can kind of understand what I mean. Okay, so there was a guy, he was... I think he was a psychologist, and his name was Clifton. And so he decided what he had noticed and noted through his journey in understanding psychology, teaching it. I think he was a professor, or he had a very big background in psychology. And what he noticed about psychology is that it was always focusing on weaknesses. Okay. And so he decided, why don't we focus on strengths? And so he started this thing where he got with Gallup, who does surveys, where they started to develop surveys that they could give people to understand their strengths and then use strengths to help people grow and get aligned with their life purpose. What an amazing thing. The reason I bring this up is because when I took the Clifton Strengths survey, it was life-changing for me. Yeah. It was huge because I realized through that everything I had been taught that I just described to you about my childhood was because those were strengths that I was meant to have a dominant presence, a dominant skill set of overcoming, challenging cultural things. I was meant to be a teacher, and see, I failed so much in school. So being a teacher, that would have been, a duality. My unconscious belief that I wasn't a very smart person, but I had these strengths, and I am very strong at teaching people. I coach people. I've been doing it for a decade. And prior to that, I was a CEO. So, it's like Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you'll think it's stupid, right? And so that Clifton Strengths thing changed me. And so I hope you can understand what I'm trying to lead you to about what people have taught you. And when you're triggered and not feeling like you're aligned with your passion or your path, this is the key right here. Okay. So you will come against a lot of adversity when you try to get aligned with your strengths. And this usually happens like between your Saturn and your Chiron return. It's like you're meant to like go through a lot of triggers, release a lot of programming, cultural beliefs, things like that. And we've all heard these stories, but I want to make it super simple for you. I want you to just recognize, okay, so I was feeling unfulfilled. I started getting in my 40s. I was feeling super unfulfilled. I had achieved everything I was supposed to, and I should be feeling great, right? But I was totally off my path. And so what that meant for me is I had to start viewing the things that were in that injured, misaligned child perspective, beliefs, indoctrinations, to find the beauty in those things so that I could remember that they are actual strengths, because without them, you won't get on your path. Okay, so then I did the Clifton Strengths thing, and I realized that a lot of what I possessed was a lot of intelligence, belief, conviction type strengths. And so what was happening in my childhood is because I was, I indoctrinated myself my soul prior to coming here, that I wouldn't fall for the bullshit. And so then when the bullshit hit me, even at a young age, I was like, wait, no. And then everybody hated me, even my parents. I would just have this look to my mother, I can remember, where she would be going crazy over something so silly. And I would just kind of look at her like, what are we doing? And she would get infuriated. Kids in school, just, like, why are we even learning this? It seems ridiculous. And this is something that's been through my whole life, like ridiculousness, just very small boxes that they were trying to fit me in. And so when I got this strengths thing, it like unlocked my soul. And that's all it is. Change your mind, you change your life. I'm sure you've heard that up to this point. But do we really understand that our strengths have been diluted into weaknesses to fit into these cultural boxes, and that's why we're not feeling purposeful, passionate, and in love with life? Has anybody ever described it to you that way before? Because nobody did to me. And the minute that I unlocked this, what I thought was my weaknesses, what I diluted myself in, and I put myself in this box, and I worked corporate world all the way to the top and still was out of alignment with my passion and my purpose, I was just like, wait, what? And that's when I had to start going through it. And man, it took me to get to Clifton Strengths. I'd already been trying to overcome a lot of my childhood, what we'll call wounds, but they were really just misbeliefs or diluting who I really was to fit in the boxes. And so it took me almost 10 years. And then all of a sudden I took this survey thing, which, by the way, you should go get the book. Man, it was life-changing for me, and it might not be that, who knows, but something that will remind you of what your strengths are and what you're resisting using to get on your path. And so the number one thing for me at that point was to understand, just in a nutshell, because I don't want to sit here and, analyze and point it out to you and everything, every little minute detail. But the number one way I could just put this in a nutshell is that everybody was in this false positivity thing going on since like 2010, 11. And I was deep and moody, and I was going through a lot of transitions within myself, and I couldn't just be fake happy. And it pissed me off when people would tell me just be happy. So use that as my example. Why was it pissing me off when people would say just be happy or just relax, just enjoy life? And I'm all going through some internal changes and I'm like moody and, trying to uncover my shadow selves and trying to get deep into my, why do I have to feel this way? Why can't I shift it? Instead of just this fake, I'm happy, Instagram life. And I really went all in with this, by the way. This just showing that I have Pluto in my first house. Pluto is part of my identity, very deep. Is I would just say, like, I feel crappy today. I don't like my life right now. I'm going to let it all go. Screw that. I need something better. I mean, I was open with it. And I got a lot of flack for that, a lot. Like, just be happy, good vibes only, all this, a lot of judgment, a lot of, people not wanting to be around me. But what I realized through that is, this depth that I was trying to achieve was to carve out a lot of the junk that I had that dual with, so that I could become my best version of myself, which didn't mean false positive. It really meant being moody, or being deep, or being this, in this culture, that's like, no, right? But that strengths test helped me realize, like, ooh, that's a strength, because it unlocked for me that I don't have to follow the culture. I have to be who I am. Moody me. And moody me, the one that's willing to face the darkness, is a teacher of the unconscious, which is our shadows, which is our unconscious. And that not being subjected to falling in line to what we already currently know and just being in that box was purposeful too, because I had to face that again in the 2011, 12, 13 awakening with all my peers, that I should just be love and light. And I'm like, no, I want to be dark and moody and figure out what's down here. Why do I keep feeling like this? Let me sit with this darkness until I understand. Yeah, Pluto conjunct my ascendant, y'all. It's a gift. And now what's happening in our culture makes so much sense to me, because now everybody's kind of getting this false positive narrative that they've just been all fake love and light, because inside they're raging lunatics, Pharisees. And I'm the person of many, but I have the strength, the skill to help them alchemize those dark, deep places. And so I just want to say this above all else. Screw those boxes. Screw that false narrative of being positive. Because what I've noticed, and I don't want to point fingers at a certain culture or belief system or area of the country, but I will say that the people that have been living in that false light, false positivity, pretending good vibes only, are actually the ones that are the most Karen and Kens in the world. Yeah. And then they play it off and they project that they have a reason to act that way. Where I'm already at the place where if there is a moment I get triggered and I'm doing something outrageous, like I treat somebody in customer service, I still struggle with that one. Yeah. In customer service, like I've been wronged, which is part of my injustice templating, right? My strength. And I just don't find compassion for them. I will immediately be like, whoa, there's part of my shadow self. I'm super sorry. And I don't project because I've been doing the internal work. I'm done with projecting. I'm done with fake light. I'm done with being fake. This is all of me. So the key to that is unlocking what you thought, what you're diluting as being too much for the world, and unlocking that and being like, no, this is my strength, period. If you're triggered because a dude made you jealous, own it. What is this meant to teach me about myself? What is the strength in this? Maybe you're meant to help women overcome jealousy, and that by that you have to be part of jealousy. The alchemy of jealousy. But if you're consistently told, oh, block that part of yourself, girl, that's not a look, then you're not facing who you really are. All of you, good, bad, ugly, all of us. Holy Spirit, be whole. Yin yang, union. That's what this really is. So the reason the context of this video is to shift and stop diluting or having weaknesses in the sidelines and just accept them as your strengths, is so that you can become a Holy Spirit. However that looks for you. In coaching, a lot of what I hear from women is codependency type tendencies. Own it. I'm codependent. Why? Because I'm valuing validation out there instead of valuing me. And then we'll go back to, find the strengths, the reasons that you have weaknesses, that you need validation, and make that strength within yourself. And that's just a really huge key way, because that duality of the culture versus who you truly are. Just own it all. Own it. Don't deflect. Just get in it. Turn it into a strength. Help others, right? So I hope that helps with my story, and start acknowledging exactly where you're triggered and wounded, and stop avoiding that part of yourself and say, what is this meant to show me? What is the strength that it can be found in what I'm deeming this trigger as bad? And start finding it as a strength, and then own all of yourself. And then when people don't validate you, or they talk smoke to you about, oh, she is codependent, or she's just jealous, or she's this and that. Yep, I am. See, that's my Pluto conjunct ascendant, because it's like, yes, in order for me to ascend, I need to accept my shadow, Pluto. So it's like, I want to help everybody do that, because what we accept in ourselves doesn't hurt us anymore. So, yep, I was jealous of that. I own it. I'm trying to figure out what's in me that I can turn this into a strength, right? Maybe you're just mad because the injustice of how bad union between men and women has become. And once you accept that you're triggered by it, and you own it, and you use it as a strength instead of a weakness, you can start helping others change in that very way. But until you do it within yourself, there's no external change. Just triggers, wounding, self-sabotage, all that. All right, so, this is a hard video for me, because all of these videos that I've been doing, I just want to keep it real. It's like going against kind of some of that new age type stuff that we're kind of falling into, and really getting into this love the shadow. If you Google my website, the number one thing I try to get the algorithm to show is Zen Penguin, love the shadow. Not light and love, not love and light, not, only love is real, all of that. It's really just understanding, yes, we know how to love, but do we know how to love our shadow? Yeah, so get on it. It's really hard to do these because I don't have the capacity to fully understand how to help people understand that our lower emotions are more key than love and light. And that's what I'm working on. And so I'm just here trying to be vulnerable and tell stories to help myself understand how to help others, because I know it's helped me a lot. And so if this video has helped you, please like, share, subscribe, give me a comment. Let me know if it helped shift you in any way. Tell me about your weaknesses. Let's start sharing our shadows, guys. Once we own them, we're free. All right, until next time, take care.